Hey everybody, I'm XTV producer Jennifer Moore. Welcome to episode 3 of XTV Newsers. And once again, I was actually able to secure a real guest. And this lady and I, we actually go back quite a while. We've been friends for about 10 years, and we worked together not once, but twice. And the first time around was on the elusive overnight shift. So welcome, Angeeneh Adamian Iyengar. And back in the day, you were known as Angeeneh Adamian. And we worked together in El Paso, Texas, and in Tampa, Florida. So Angeeneh, thank you so much for joining me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much for having me on. It's a pleasure to see you and talk to you and be part of this.
And you as well. Now, let's start off with the easy question. What jobs did you have at TV stations?
Sure. I had many jobs, believe it or not, in a TV news environment. You almost have to wear many hats. My first job was in Casper, Wyoming, where first I started off as an intern there, just updating a website and trying to get as much on-air experience as I could. And eventually I got hired there about 3 days after I graduated with my degree in broadcast journalism, which is a big win for anybody in broadcast news. But anyway, I worked there for about a year, and then I got the overnight gig in El Paso. Of course, I met you, and I got a lot of great experience there, mostly doing reporting. In Wyoming, I was doing producing, reporting, website updates, anything and everything that was needed. At times, you were almost the news director when the news director was gone. So a lot of different hats there. But in El Paso, mostly it was overnight reporting. I did some anchoring there, which I truly enjoyed. And then got the job as a multi-news journalist, as they call them, Big News 9 in Tampa, Florida. So I did that for about a year and a half. And that was the end of my news career before I transitioned into doing something else.
And I got to say, working the overnight shift as a reporter is a very unique experience. Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
Absolutely. I was just so excited when I got that job that I got to leave Casper, Wyoming. It was a great place to live. It was an interesting community, but I was ready to work in a bigger market and, report on different type of stories that weren't so, rural oriented. So when they said overnight reporter, I was like, oh, I'm so in. But once I got there, you kind of realize, okay, overnight reporting is exciting because, your report, as soon as a fire happens, like 20 minutes later, you're there. Sometimes we were there before, the emergency crews were there, which was kind of interesting. But it was a very unique experience. Definitely put a lot of things into perspective, not just about the career and the demands of being an on-air person, but also just in life. Like you really learn to appreciate sleep and a normal, schedule when you're working overnight. So it was intense, but I really made some amazing friends doing that. I mean, when you're working those kind of hours, you really do have to become like family. I mean, for the most part, you're kind of in survival mode. You're just trying to get through to the next story, get your, deadline, get your story in. And it was an intense experience, but it was something I would not trade in for anything.
And I got to say, working at those small stations, like you really end up bonding with the people around you because you're all starting out. It's kind of like a crash course in it's almost like grad school for journalists. And I'll never forget. So one thing I remember about you is when you'd first started working there, I went to your apartment and of course, we were kind of broke. We weren't making a lot of money. And everybody at the time was getting those Little Caesars hot and ready pizzas, the $5 ones. And that's kind of what I lived on for a while, just because Absolutely. you had to budget your money. And I remember going to your apartment and you had one too. And I was like, yes, I'm not alone.
Literally.
Those Little Caesars
for a week. Like
it was Little Caesars $5
overnights. It's literally working overnights. I was just talking to my mom about this. Like you would be craving a pizza at 8 a.m. You can't get pizza in the morning. Not in El Paso, not when I lived there. So it was like it was just a whole different life. And, you're eating dinner and you're just trying to figure out your day. It was an intense, interesting experience. But again, I would not trade it. I learned so much there, made so many great friends and a lot of stories that, even though I'm not there, I still think about from time to time.
I know, me too. All right. What was the best part about working in news for you?
For me, the best part of working in news was, and I know you're supposed to, as a journalist, you're supposed to kind of keep your distance. And in order to do a good job, you really do need to, not have a bias and and even just as a journalist, you kind of do need to keep your distance just to keep your sanity. You don't want to get too involved in the stories that you're reporting on. But for me, the best part of the job was when I did have the opportunity, if someone had just lost their home, I mean, you really do meet people on the worst day of their lives sometimes. And, you have an opportunity there. I mean, you work for the media. I would love to contact, a big box store or some department store and say, hey, this family I just reported on last night, they literally lost their entire livelihood. They just lost everything they owned. And, the Red Cross is there and they, give them certificates for a couple days. And that's not going to, especially if you have a young family, that's not going to get you very far. So, I would reach out to one of those stores and, oh my gosh, the generosity, just to see the generosity you wouldn't expect from like a Walmart or a Target. These are huge stores. What do they care about some family who lost everything? But they did. I mean, the managers at the stores, I, went and reached out to them and they wanted the sizes of the kids and they donated, so many things. Just it meant so much to these families, and just to be able to see that, not even to follow up as a reporter, but just to see, these people are going to be okay. It's okay, and to know that you had a little hand in that, just connecting people. I mean, I didn't do anything. I don't think I did anything. Just connecting a store that's willing to donate to a family that's obviously in a time of crisis. Those were the best stories for me personally.
Yeah, seeing that people really are good and seeing the generosity of the community that's coming together. That's so amazing. All right. Now, on the flip side, what was the worst part about working in the news business?
Oh my goodness. Again, there is like such a long list. I'm trying to keep it upbeat. And of course, every job has its positives and negatives. No job is perfect, but the hours were intense. Like we were just talking about overnights. I mean, when you sign up for an overnight, that's what you're going to be doing. But just the on-call aspect, not being able to plan a family dinner because you don't know if you're going to be home for dinner sometimes. So that was a little inconvenient, but that can be worked through. I think some of the more intense parts of the job were, sometimes the doom and gloom really can get to you spiritually. I mean, you're talking to people who lost their home, who lost their child, who were just, sometimes it almost feels inappropriate to try to interview these people, but you do want to get their story out, and you'd be surprised. Some people were really open and ready to talk to you, and some were not, and they would let you know. But I think that for me was probably the most difficult part of the job is, you do get kicked, you do get spit on, you do get door slammed in your face. That's part of your job.
Yeah, and people don't see that side sometimes of reporting, is that you're put in some very tough situations that most people are not ever in. Like trying to go to a neighborhood and talk to someone whose loved one has just been shot or something bad happens. So, and you're supposed to try to talk to them and you're like, oh, yeah. So that's
sometimes it just feels wrong. It just felt wrong. But, you have to remember you're doing a job. You're trying to get a story out, and maybe someone can learn something from the story. And some people really, you'd be surprised, or I was actually surprised by the strength. I mean, if I had just lost a family member or, been in a crazy accident or a victim of some kind of insane crime, I don't know if I would want to be on camera talking about it. But you'd be surprised. Some people just come out there and say, hey, look, I want you to know my mom's story. This is my mom's legacy, or this was my son. So I was really surprised and, just in awe of the strengths that some people have in the face of such horrible circumstances.
Well, that's at least a good memory you have to look back on. All right. So is there something that you would want the world to know about the TV news business that may not be evident on the surface?
For me, and I don't know, maybe this is just for me, I just want people to know, and although I'm not in the news business anymore, but people who are on television, these are people at the end of the day. I mean, you let them into your living room and they deliver the news, but they're people at the end of the day. So I think back to some of the, some viewers, I don't know if they just were a little bit negative about your personal appearance or, your voice or your eyebrows, or you'd be surprised. People really were a little critical, a little more than maybe they should have been. These are people, and when they're out there reporting on these horrible things or good things or whatever, it affects them too. It's just keep in mind that these journalists, at the end of the day, they have families too, and they're people. It may not seem that way. I mean, I guess there is a little bit of a disconnect between a reporter on television and your life at home, but they are people and they have feelings. So that may sound cliche, but for me, I think that's an important message.
Yeah, sometimes it does seem like we get a lot of hate sometimes. So, particularly on the internet.
Yes.
Particularly on the. All right, is there one story offhand that you remember as having a really big impact on you?
That's a good question. There are several stories. One that I just mentioned about that fire, that one was in El Paso. The earthquake in Haiti, that was a pretty big one. And just the aftermath after that and all the hurt and all the generosity, like I said, that came with that. That was kind of a big story. And everyone was trying to scramble to see who had their passports and who could go. And that was a crazy time in the newsroom. But the stories that came out of that were pretty powerful. Just, again, the generosity. I just feel like it's such a unique experience to just see it firsthand. So those types of stories are the ones that stick out to me the most.
Let's talk about the viral stories. Now, those are all the rage. How do you get people are always wondering, how do you get a viral story? Like this recent Rhoda Young reporting live on the scene lady, so what,
yes.
which is crazy. And she's awesome. What attributes have you noticed that viral stories really tend to have?
For me, the viral stories that I remember from now, I mean, the most of my news comes from, the internet and social media. That's just kind of my lifestyle these days. But the ones that stick out to me and the ones that I think tend to go viral, the ones I see online are, someone who leaves like a giant tip on, for a waitress, especially, around the holiday time of year. Or, I saw the one online the other day about just a woman giving this elderly man who looked like he was freezing out in the cold, just giving him a jacket. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. Or just people doing good, like the police officer buying shoes for a homeless person. I think those are the ones that people want to see. Of course, here and there's a crazy one. I think I saw one recently about the manger scene at a church where, a 2.5-year-old kind of took over, cute, just a cute little escape from it all, I think, or just really good stories. I think those are good qualities of a viral video. And here and there, you do get the wacky ones where you're like, what is this? But for the most part, I think good in people, silly, funny, good, clean humor. Those are the kind of stories.
All right. So people, if you want to get a viral video, that's what you should do. That's what you should try to do. Apparently.
Absolutely.
And that seems to be what everyone is kind of echoing. So that's, and that's why we're talking to people like you guys, is to try to, get more of a cross section of people to say, this is what I think a viral story is. And yeah, good news, anything positive, anything really out of the ordinary. All right. So you've probably, over the years, you've probably had a lot of people pitch you stories, like media and PR people. And also you worked on the other side as well. If you were to come up with sort of a guide on best practices for media relations, what kind of stuff would be in it?
Yes, as you mentioned, being on the PR side of things, you'd be surprised some of the things that the PR agency would say. Okay, we need to pitch this to media. We need all this coverage, and you're like, all right, what is the story here? Like, what are they going to cover exactly? Just because we think, May is skin cancer awareness month, the media doesn't really necessarily have the urgency to cover this story like a PR person thinks that they should. Definitely, I would say have, visuals, have a personal story. When I was working in medical PR, and it was not hard to get a personal story, someone who survived skin cancer, someone who had been tanning since the age of 15, who has a message to share after going through cancer treatment. Those are the kind of stories that I feel like, the media enjoys covering. Those are the kind of stories that I feel like are impactful for their viewers. Something that we can all learn from, a lesson to be learned. Those are the type of stories that, just having visuals, having something to show, having a real person to interview who has a story from their real life. So often we catch ourselves, oh, hey, this doctor has this to say, and this doctor and this, CEO of the hospital. No one cares. No, I mean, I don't want to be offensive, but I just don't think people out there, that message is not going to be, even if you do somehow get a news station to cover you, I don't think it's going to be impactful. And if the real idea of Skin Cancer Awareness Month is skin cancer awareness, you want to have a story.
Exactly. And we've all been in those editorial meetings where your boss is like, what's the today angle? So you need to have, it not only needs to be newsworthy, but it also needs to have a timely angle too. And a lot of the pitches we got, it wasn't there. Like, so your boss would be like, we could do this story whenever. Why would we be doing it today?
Right. Exactly.
There are a lot of people out there trying to get some media attention, trying to get coverage for like their business or for something they're doing. There's a lot of people here on YouTube what advice would you give to YouTubers who wanted to get noticed by media outlets?
I think of the news realm. I think the height of trying to find stories on YouTube and trying to, keep a pulse on, trying to keep your eyes everywhere. It's almost impossible. But for me as a news person, when I would go to YouTube was, if I could just find video of a scene that I wasn't at overnight, or, an example of someone planking, or I don't know, something that I just couldn't find the ordinary person doing on a day to day. So those are the times when I would go to YouTube, but I think there's a lot of opportunities there. Sometimes I feel like if I were ever to go back into news, I totally have a different perspective now. After being married, after having 2 kids, after traveling a little bit, I feel like I finally got the chance to do a little living. Maybe that wasn't possible when I was in the television business. So maybe now I feel like a lot of the cool stories are kind of have to filter through all that material on YouTube. I'm not saying all of it is, cat videos, but if you have the time, or you are tuned in to the right channels, I feel like you will find some very unique and interesting stories. If I had the chance to do it again, maybe that would be somewhere that I would go for new, fresh news ideas. I feel like the news ideas now are coming to me left and right now that I'm not in the business anymore. But when I was in the business, I was like, oh, great. What am I going to cover today? I feel like everything's kind of been done. So anyway, that's just a personal note for me.
That is, those are some good points about YouTube, and you're looking for individual stories. So
Right.
if you are a YouTuber and you want to get, like, say you want to be covered by your local news station, have a unique story. And also, as you've probably found, they kind of need to have a local tie. So like a station
Right.
in Cleveland is probably not going to cover a YouTuber in like Denver, like you got to,
Right.
it's got to be
Exactly.
someone that has like a personal tie to the community too.
Right. And from a news perspective, some of the, one of the more difficult parts of the job was actually getting someone on camera. They may have a really great story and they have, something to say about something going on in their workplace or whatever, but they didn't want to go on camera. And, if you don't have someone to talk about it, you can't just go on TV and say, so-and-so says.
Yeah. And then they would be like, well, why can't you just put my story on the news anyways? It's like, because we can't say this. We have to have someone else say it.
Right. On YouTube, I mean, if someone's out there telling their story, they're willing to be on camera. So that's kind of one portion of it that, was taken out of that equation. So that's also another positive. I think it's worth discussing.
Those are some very good thoughts. And you decided to leave the business after Bay News 9. Can you kind of walk people through why you decided to get out at that time?
Sure. That was kind of a height of, for me, it was just doom and gloom. I think the news business really took a toll on me as a person. That was just, when you're covering those kind of stories, I'm not saying they were all negative, but I feel like maybe I did kind of personalize it, or I took it home with me. And at the time, you go home and you cry because you're like, why did this happen to these people? And it's just, it kind of took over my life. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm kind of getting in a place where I'm not happy with my job, and I'm just not happy at all. This is not a way to live. And I know a lot of people have a great way of mentalizing and getting through that. And work is work and life is life and home is home. I didn't have those boundaries. And I feel like that kind of affected me as a person. And it was definitely time for me. I couldn't see continuing that lifestyle anymore. It was not something that was just working for me. And fortunately for me, I was able to land in PR and do that for a while. And I really enjoyed that. And it was kind of the natural next step. You have regular hours. No one calls you at 2 a.m.
And holidays off?
You have the weekend off. I had really not had a weekend off. Since I was in college, it was kind of hard to even think that way, but the weekend off, it was unreal. It was amazing. It was like the life I had always wanted. But, I did miss the news a little bit, and I thought I would miss it a lot more, to be honest. I just kind of stopped watching, kind of disconnected for a while. And then, there's the necessary information day to day, like weather and, whatever that you need to know to live, from day to day. But nonetheless, I did not. I thought I was going to miss it a lot more. Now, occasionally, after moving to a different city, I think about getting back into business. It's exciting, but again, with 2 young kids, it's not really practical right now. Maybe eventually, but for now, it's not something I could ever see myself getting back into.
And now we need to talk about this because you are actually still using a lot of your journalism skills, but it's actually to help your husband who is on TV a lot. Can you kind of talk about how you guys work together?
Sure. So my husband was the resident physician for NBC's show called Daytime. It's kind of a variety show, local, based out of Tampa, but it was nationally syndicated, 144 cities. So he would talk. He's a cardiologist, by profession, but he would discuss all types of topics. The dangers of high heels. He would talk about salt in food. Sometimes he would talk about cardio.
Remember, he did one on yoga pants and how they were
He
were
did
bad
do
for
one
you,
on yoga.
which was
That
kind of a
one was
bummer to hear
pretty
about.
good. Yeah, no, he totally called me out on that one, by the way. Oh, my wife likes to wear yoga pants all the time. And I was like,
Who doesn't? I mean, they're the best things ever.
yeah, no, they are totally the best things ever. I'm not going to deny that. But nonetheless, so he does a lot of television. He did a few segments for local TV stations where it was like Heart Awareness Month, or he started doing new procedures, new devices that were helping a lot of patients in our county and in our community. So he did a lot of television. And for me, when I started working at a PR agency, he was actually one of my clients. And wrote all of the scripts for him, contacted the producer, trying to come up with different topics that they thought were, viewer friendly or something that the viewers would enjoy. So that was kind of how, and I still to this day or to very recently would still come up with topics and, write his scripts and try to find opportunities for him to be on local television, and not so much just for him to get his name out there, more so for the community to know, new procedures are available. One of the procedures he does eliminates the need for open heart surgery, which, as you can imagine, your chest takes a while to recover from. So now there's a new procedure for some patients, when appropriate, that they can have a new heart valve inserted through an artery or through a vein through their groin, all the way up to their heart, which is much less recovery and much quicker, much less downtime. So those are the kind of things I think it's important for the community to know about. Also, it's a great, thing for him to get his name out there as well, that he does.
Yeah, and a lot of professionals have trouble with that sort of personal branding or with getting themselves out there for exposure, but it's something that's really good for business and also good for you professionally too.
Right. And I found when doing, medical PR, some doctors are just amazing professionals. They do a great job on the operating table. They do a great job talking to the patients, but sometimes you get them in front of a camera and they're just kind of hard to understand, or they have a lot of medical speak, or they just freak out. So I think he's a good balance. He definitely has a good way of communicating, and he definitely gets his point across. And I just think it's some of the things he's doing where we're living in Brighton, also where we're living now in Boulder, are just really exciting. And I think it's worth.
Yeah, and I will say he is amazing. He's really talented on camera. So you have two people in the family that are very charismatic in front of the camera, and I hear your daughter is a little bit into that idea as well.
She is something else. This girl loves being in front of the camera. I don't know what her future holds, but definitely she is not camera shy.
No, not at all. And you were telling me the other day, you don't know where she got, it just sort of came out of nowhere.
I mean, yeah, it's not like we have cameras around the house all the time. We're not like the Kardashians or anything. So, we're the day to day, but you turn that camera around, the feature where you turn the video around, and she is just on. It shocks me. I mean, I don't know. It might be in her genes. I don't know. But this girl, she really enjoys being on camera. But I don't know what 2.5-year-old maybe doesn't. I don't know if that's just part of being 2.5 and just not having a care in the world, or if she really does, enjoy. Only time will tell. What
that's so hilarious. That's just when you told me that, I just thought that was so funny and so adorable too. Because I've seen your videos, and she does seem to really enjoy having her picture taken, and she really enjoys having that phone on.
Absolutely.
So I think that's awesome. So, what is your favorite social media platform?
Right now, okay, so I have to admit, since getting out of television and maybe, deviating a little bit from PR, right now it's just Facebook to stay in touch with family. I guess that's more personal. I do realize the value of Snapchat and Instagram, and I know plenty of people who make a living out of posting about what they're wearing, what they're eating, makeup tutorials.
I know, right?
Gosh, I don't know if I have time for this, but it seems interesting. And there are definitely a lot of opportunities there. For me, it's just Facebook. I get my news there. I connect with my family. It's fun to post pictures of, the holidays or whatever's going on, and it's really, important to try to hold back a little bit. We just went through potty training and big girl bed and all this stuff.
And I saw you potty trained your daughter in a week. Is that right?
I didn't even think it was possible either.
I know. Maybe you should do like secrets to potty training, because I'm sure there are a lot of moms and dads out there that would.
Honestly, the biggest secret for us, they will tell you when they're ready. I mean, the kid was practically changing her own diapers. Wow. She would wake up and she's like, "Mommy, need a diaper?" And you're like, "Oh my God, it's time to potty." Like this, if there was ever a sign, this is it. So
that's incredible in itself. So, and what do you see? I know you've been out of the game for a little bit, but you still keep in touch with your news friends, and you still keep an eye on it. What do you feel like TV stations can do to really adapt in this whole changing landscape?
Yeah, I do feel it is time to do some adapting. I feel like, that chit chat banter between weather and sports, I feel like that's kind of where it's at. I mean, people
like the personalities. Yeah.
The personalities, new, different, like anybody can report on a car accident, a fire, grand opening of a business. I mean, it's just that what kind of sets you apart? What is your news style? What the personalities that anchors bring, maybe a little bit of their take on the story. I feel like, I just feel like maybe that is more the future of television news, which was my, where I have the most experience. I feel like that's kind of what.
And somebody needs to give that lady Rhoda Young a job. The live on the scene lady.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to hire her like ASAP, because she's
all about energy, and she's got a lot of energy.
I just love, and everybody I know in TV news watched that and just absolutely loved it. Like, I know she was a little bit colorful, but at the same time, like, that's the sort of thing that people would actually watch.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? I feel like now what everybody has, not everybody, a lot of people have, cameras on their phone and the Facebook Live. It's almost like anybody can be a reporter. I mean, honestly, you're just saying what you're saying, and you have a little energy, and you're, coherent and understandable. I mean, that's interesting. People are going to, I mean, I don't know. I would watch that. Anybody can be a reporter, and now getting out of the business, I'm like, wow, I'm not technically out of the business. If I wanted to follow, the ambulances around or whatever.
You could you could be live on the scene of this bitch whenever you wanted to be there.
Oh my goodness.
That line, I about died while watching her video. It was so funny. And lastly, I want to give you the opportunity for anybody watching, if anyone is watching, to ask all of our viewers any question you want.
Yes. So I've been thinking about this, and I feel, this was the most intimidating question of all the questions that you've asked me, because I wasn't sure, what do I want to know? But I feel like after doing some thinking, the truth is, I don't know. I feel like, do people really want to see all the doom and gloom? I mean, in the TV business, we joke around, if it bleeds, it leads. But is that true? Like, do people really want to see all that craziness off the top of your show? I mean, would people tune in if it was good information? I mean, it's always good information. If it was like a good, positive story, a good story, maybe more of a feature story off the top, not necessarily, oh, this happened and these people died in this mass shooting. I know it's important to cover those types of stories, but sometimes I just feel like back to back, it's just a little, you almost want to just turn off the TV.
Yeah, your whole A block is kind of depressing.
Yeah,
and then they always put the good stories in like the last 5 minutes.
They do, like the squirrel that's skis or whatever. I mean, I'm not saying people you want to lead your show with something like that, but
actually, that might be a good show.
That would be a very interesting, different type of show. But nonetheless, I don't know. Do people really want to see all that doom and gloom? Is that really why you watch, local news? Is that what it's about, or does the news people have it all wrong? That people want to see something other than that, or not so much of that, or maybe 2 minutes of that instead of 10 minutes of that. I don't know, but that would be my question.
That's an excellent question. Okay, so people, if you are watching right now, in the comments below, answer Angeeneh's question. When you're watching the news, do you want to see the doom and gloom? Like, let us know what kind of stuff would you want to see on the local news. I mean, obviously there's a point where, it's a delicate balance between what people want to watch and what's important too. But how do you feel about all of the like the really sad or negative stories, like
Yeah. I mean, the truth
the
is,
violent stories.
it's just, we would cover like car accidents. I feel like for me were the worst because I've been in car accidents and you're like, oh my God, please God, don't let there be news cameras that roll up because it's not that bad of an accident. Like, what is the viewer benefit? I understand if there was, a fire in your building or, some event that is inconveniencing people, shutting down traffic, whatever, that's important for people to know. But if it's something that, no one really got injured and people are okay, what is the viewer benefit? Like, what are your viewers getting out of that? Is viewer benefit even important anymore? I don't know. And again, I'm not watching traditional news so much these days, so I don't know. Maybe things have changed. But in what I have seen, it's just sometimes it's
a little much. And I remember from our days, we covered a lot of those single vehicle rollover crashes. So that was like, after a while, you're cut. Like, it's like, how many of these can we go to? The single vehicle rollover, like one car.
I can understand. Sometimes it's a great visual, but I mean, why? Like, who's getting anything out of watching this? I'm sure if someone who was involved feels horribly if they caused it or they were involved. I mean, I wouldn't want to be on TV if I was in a rollover crash. It just, I don't know.
No, definitely not. Well, Angeeneh, thank you so much for being here, and hope maybe we'll see a YouTube channel for your daughter. We'll stay tuned.
Oh dear, we'll see about that.
But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And if you guys out there, if you are also an XTV newser and you want to be featured, hit me up on Twitter. I'm at XTV Producer. And Angeeneh, thank you so much. And we will see you guys next time.